I don't always release my videos in time, but I do what I can here. Welcome to the 2 a.m. edition of Forecast Lab, the Friday show, but it is Saturday, so we'll just call it Saturday, December 7th. On the West Coast, look at that, another atmospheric river. No sign of La Nina. Climate Prediction Center still calling for neutral conditions, and it really hasn't seemed much like a true La Nina year. There is that atmospheric river impinging on Vancouver Island and British Columbia, values of about 800 to 1,000. That will diminish as we go into Saturday, and not much left for Sunday. The next river lined up out there in the northeastern Pacific, but it weakens as it approaches the coast. A big one further out to sea, but that one appears to weaken as well. Maybe a little bit of an effect there on Seattle and Portland. So we will be moving in these storm systems, no major impacts on the West Coast. In fact, the main topic of interest is Southern California, a Santa Ana event coming up for early next week. Here is the weather map for early Saturday at midnight. A large prevailing high across the eastern U.S. into Texas and Oklahoma. Westerly flow to the north, driving this warm front through North Dakota. Temperatures rising above freezing. In the western states, a plateau high through the Great Basin region. Pressures up to 1032 millibars and fog starting to develop in those vulnerable areas around the Great Salt Lake, the Snake River Valley, and around Missoula. Also the San Joaquin Valley starting to get some Tule fog developing, and that will cause problems into midday on Saturday. Down south, we've got a small atmospheric river spreading across Mexico into Texas. Although Texas is under high pressure, there is enough isentropic lift and moisture in the column to get these showers going. Doesn't look like any thunderstorms at this time. However, you can see right there at, Temple, 45 with rain at this time. All right, let's look at the weather region by region across the country. This says infrared imagery. We've got very cold conditions showing up on the infrared channel. That's going to be very cold cloud tops. Some of this is convective debris coming off the lakes. Going further south, stratus within that cold advection zone. And then in this region right here, western Ohio into Indiana and Chicago, that is going to be clear skies. But this is interesting, this layer of gray up there in Wisconsin and just north of Chicago. However, looking at the nighttime microphysics, that shows a layer of low cloud that is actually warmer than the ground it is covering up. Kind of unusual there. Let's go back and look at that. Yeah, see, it's very subtle, but that is going to be a kind of a dull gray area contrasting from the whitish ground. So those are some things to look at. At the current time, we do have lake effect snows continuing, slowly dwindling down, but the Lake Ontario snowbelt still active around Watertown and from Buffalo, Jamestown down to Erie, the Lake Erie snowbelt going as well. So we have winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories in effect through Saturday. There could be 8 to 15 inches of snow on top of what we already have, especially around the Tug Hills. We're talking about Oswego, Jefferson, Lewis counties, winter weather advisories into the Adirondacks. And for Lake Erie, 3 to 6 inches of snow, gradually shutting down. Canada itself, they do have snow squall advisories continuing. The area of heaviest accumulations runs from about Barrie to Port Elkin, looking for about 4 to 6 inches through this morning. Checking out the southeastern U.S., cold conditions. Cold enough where you can make out the lakes showing up as these little dark dots all over the place. Cold advection off the east coast. So we've got this stratocumulus developing as the air moves offshore. Some very cold temperatures across the southeast right now. Teens all the way down into eastern Tennessee. Teens down into North Carolina. 20s all through most of Georgia. Down into the Florida Panhandle. Look at that, 29 right there at Crestview. 40 along the coast, 28 inland, and 33 at Jacksonville. And then going into Florida itself, 40s, 50s, and then we finally reach those balmy 60s around Miami and Fort Lauderdale. As we mentioned, a weak atmospheric river moving into Texas, producing rain across much of the state. 42 degrees at Lufkin, that's almost the cold spot in Texas. And then further up north, 35 at Oklahoma City, 32 at Little Rock. And there it is, that weak atmospheric river coming in from the southwest. In fact, really the main contribution of moisture, that's going to be coming from the western Gulf as it begins advecting north later tonight into Sunday. Out to the west, a cutoff low around Nogales and Tucson. Let's take a look at that on the 500 millibar chart. Yeah, that correlates pretty well. There it is, the cutoff low digging into the southwestern U.S., and as that emerges into Texas, we are going to be seeing an increase in rain going into tomorrow. On the west coast, however, ridging building in and helping to maintain that plateau high across the Great Basin area. The deeper westerlies still pretty far out in the Pacific. And there's that wide open northwesterly flow in the northeastern states, basically like leaving the refrigerator door open. So one last look at the southern U.S. There's all that rain and clouds. Most of that is mid-level cloud. We head up into the north-central U.S. and check that region out. We have a winter weather advisory across the arrowhead of Minnesota overnight through this afternoon. Way up there at the top, 2 to 4 inches of snow possible. Then on Sunday afternoon to Monday morning, a winter storm watch in the Minnesota arrowhead, 4 to 8 inches of snow. And it gets worse as you go east towards Grand Marais. A big warm-up for today in the high plains further out to the west, as we see mid-60s from western Kansas up to Rapid City. Even southeastern Montana looking for almost 60. North Dakota, which was in the icebox last week, they rise to 48 at Bismarck and 56 at Lemon. That must feel like July. High wind watch overnight in the high country of southeastern Wyoming. West of I-25 near Cheyenne, Douglas, Laramie, strong west winds gusting to 60 miles an hour. In the southwestern U.S., clear skies, but yeah, there is fog in the San Joaquin Valley. Can't see it on that infrared imagery. The NT Microphysics product showing it a little bit right there around Fresno, maybe down towards Hanford, but we really need that surface map. Yeah, actual observations are always preferred. So we are coming down to about a mile in many of these places. That's really not dense fog. However, at Lemoore Naval Air Station down to 1/4 mile, and it will be getting worse as we go into the morning hours. However, some big changes coming up for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as a Santa Ana event sets up. Highest winds in this area right here. That is going to be a fire weather watch. The highest winds expected Monday night, Tuesday into Tuesday night. Northeast winds gusting to 65 miles an hour, mostly in the passes and the foothills. The winds will be weaker down in the valleys. Low relative humidities down to 5 to 10%. That will contribute to a significant wildfire problem. Further north, this is going to be a dense fog advisory that extends from Bakersfield to passes all the way up towards Merced. And there is the Pacific Northwest getting hit yet again, been very active this past couple of months. Extensive winter weather advisories all through the Pacific Northwest all weekend. Winter storm warnings in the higher elevations in the Cascades, I-95 to Canada. late Saturday and Sunday above 3,000 feet. Inland, Ellensburg, Moses Lake, Spokane, Omak, Colville, mixed precipitation, a little bit of snow. That's prompting a winter weather advisory. Also north of Coeur d'Alene in Idaho, Saturday into Saturday night, looking for about 6 inches of snow. Winter weather advisory right there. And in northwestern Montana, a mix of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories. The hardest hit area, the US 2 corridor, west of Kalispell to Libby, up to 4 inches of snow possible there. And of course, that's due to this system making its way inland, as you saw on those IVT graphics at the start of the program. And as we head north into Alaska, quiet conditions. Don't have any super deep lows in the Gulf of Alaska. Gale warnings were in effect around Valdez overnight due to southeast winds 35 knots with seas 17 feet. There is the potential on Sunday and Monday for downslope conditions on the north slope of the Alaska Range. That's due to southerly flow setting up. Most of our problems are out west. Winter storm warnings Sunday through Tuesday in the Seward Peninsula interior and the middle Yukon Valley. 2 to 12 inches of snow possible there. Along the west coasts of Alaska, right here around Nome, they're looking for about 1 to 5 inches of snow, some icing, winds about 40 miles an hour. Again, that's Sunday and Tuesday as well. That's prompting a winter weather advisory there. In Canada, British Columbia, yeah, they're catching some of the atmospheric river as well. 3 to 4 inches of rain expected on the coast, 1 to 2 inches inland around Vancouver. Winter storm warnings and snowfall warnings around Revelstoke and Blue River. That runs through Saturday due to snowfalls of 8 to 12 inches. In the Northwest Territories, we've got fog advisories, basically in this area right here. Basically the Great Slave Lake to Uranium City area and Fort Chip. They are looking for heavy fog through this morning. Manitoba, yeah, there's a big snow band right there. That will be changing over to freezing rain as this strong warm advection sets up. So we do have freezing rain warnings running from about Thunder Bay to around Kenora, Lake Winnipeg, and Flin Flon. This whole area, a freezing rain warning. And of course, we've got those snow squall advisories in the Great Lakes and a winter storm warning in Labrador for Hopedale and Nain. Looking for 2 to 4 inches of snow there with blowing snow and 50-mile-an-hour winds on the backside of this occlusion. And yeah, some very cold air in eastern Canada, sub-zero all the way down into Quebec and northern Ontario, and in the core of that Arctic air down to minus 10 to minus 20. Now, it could be a lot worse. However, it does have great aerial extent all the way from Greenland to Victoria Island, from Manitoba all the way to northern Greenland. Now, this story has been making the rounds, 80% chance of Texas blackouts amid severe winter storm. They're talking about the possibility later this winter of a similar outbreak of cold air. And this news is coming from ERCOT, which is the operator of the Texas power grid. They've got their own forecasters there, and I guess they've been looking at different patterns for this winter. So it's not only a Texas thing. This would certainly have impacts all through the central U.S. if this happened. So do we have anything like that in the short term? This is a map of temperatures in Canada. This is where a lot of our bitterly cold Arctic air comes from. And just a little pocket of super cold air up there around Igloolik. So this is not really similar to what we had back in 2021. They are looking further down the road, maybe towards late December or January or February. But in the short term, not much cold air coming down south. Yeah, right there around the middle of the week, some bitterly cold air setting up, minus 20 to minus 30. Could be a lot worse. But yeah, it does look like a period of maybe some cold air starting to set up, but it has yet to be seen whether the patterns will bring that south. by comparison, here's how the patterns looked in 2021. This is February 2nd, February 3rd, February 4th. That outbreak was in the middle of February, so we got to go up a ways. But this shows you the coloring. Starting to see those really deep oranges up there in the Northwest Territories, in Alberta, and Saskatchewan, which is rather critical. And this is going to be the start of that cold air coming south. So there was a good kick with northwesterly flow that basically brought that into the U.S. There it is in the northern border area and just surges on to the south. So that's really all it takes to get that outbreak going. So is anything like that going to happen this year? Well, really, we don't have enough data. The best we can do is look at the climate forecast system. Nothing really for December. In fact, it looks a little bit above normal around Christmas and New Year's. Although, again, this is just one dynamical model. They don't do too well beyond 14 days. So this is kind of some crystal ball forecasting. Then at the very end, yeah, it seems to develop this around the 7th and 8th of January, but this is way, way out there. This is 750 hours in the future, so you might as well go to the fortune teller and see if they agree with this. That's really about the best we can do. So they're probably looking at analogs and patterns, the general flow, so that is not going to be based on dynamical solutions. There's just no way they can forecast like that. So we shall see. I mean, there is the potential for some surprise weather later in the winter. Anyway, let's take a look at the forecast. This is where we're at this morning. And looks rather quiet going through the rest of the day. Some rain and showers out there in the northwestern U.S. We go into Sunday, another mild day, warmer across the southwestern deserts, 60s along the Gulf Coast, rain in Texas and Louisiana. Then we see this next front dropping down. That's what's going to kick off the Santa Ana winds. Cold advection in the northern plains. That'll bring the temperatures down once again, dropping the highs from the 50s and 60s down into the 30s. And here we see the pressures building up to 1030 millibars in northern Nevada, compared with 1016 in Los Angeles. And that is a difference of about 14 millibars. And that's a good indicator that Santa Ana conditions are close at hand. So we go into Monday, and we've got our event developing later during the evening, strong pressure gradient between Tonopah and the San Joaquin Valley, and a strong pressure gradient from Bryce Canyon all the way down towards Phoenix, so they may be getting some gusty winds in Arizona as well. Strong cold advection through the southern plains into the Midwest. Sharply colder in Grand Forks in Minnesota. The teens return looking for highs of 22 degrees at Minneapolis, 23 at Bismarck. And then we go into Wednesday, cold air filtering throughout the entire U.S. east of the Rockies. A little bit of a warm-up in the high plains, but cold weather in Nevada there, highs in the single digits from Grand Forks to the Arrowhead, 17 degrees at Minneapolis. And I think our Santa Ana event is about gone in California, and we get to the very end towards next weekend, a string of Pacific weather systems, so just kind of like more of the same, a southern stream system in Texas. Then we get to the very end, and I think that is going to be it. And that will do it for your very late or very early edition of Forecast Lab. I do appreciate the comments from our viewers. Dana Durkee lives in the Tri-Cities of South Central Washington, reporting dreary, persistent low clouds and fog. Jan Curtis in Cheyenne, Wyoming, 25 to 55 degrees these past few days. Roger Calaza up there in Syracuse near the Lake Ontario snowbelt, reporting gray weather. Ron Chalfant in the San Bernardino Mountains of Southern California reports very mild weather. He will be getting those gusts Monday and Tuesday. And Michael Hyman reports the first accumulated snow of the season in Rochester, New York. Okay, I'm way up past my bedtime, so I need to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you very much for watching, and please comment and Let me know what you like about the program and let me know what the weather's doing in your area. Okay, hope you have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday for the supporters. Remember, if you want to be a supporter, you need to head to Patreon. Here's the link for that, and that will greatly help me out and help out this channel and help keep this project moving forward. And for everybody else, we'll see you back here on Wednesday for another edition. Take care and stay warm, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.